get started forward with what Krishna is telling Arjun about how a person with steady intelligence fixes his mind. In the previous shlok, we talked about how Krishna is telling Arjun to always keep his mind in Krishna consciousness, because these senses and mind are so powerful that one can get carried away really easily, and that may become one's fall down. This is what Krishna is telling in this shloka, and not just this one. We are talking about 2.62 and 6.3. We are going to take them both together because they are both on the same theme. They are continuing. One is continuing into the other. And in these two shlokas, we will come to know the modus operandi of how we get carried away. It's so important. It is so practical for us to know the process by which we may fall down. Because if we know the process by which we fall down, we can check ourselves at any of these points. The sooner we realize, we can immediately put a stop to it. You see, knowledge is power. If we know where we are leading to, what is the exact step we are at right now, we can actually help ourselves from falling down. So we'll say our prayers first, and then we will take up 2.62 and 2.63. Om Ajnanitimirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurulmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The magic mantra. So let's read the shloka number 2.62 and 2.63 together, and the translations also together, because we will build a staircase from these two. We will see how these steps lead us to a place much down below where we are possibly going to be headed towards a downfall. So the shloka number 2.64 is, let's see, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kama Krodho Bhijayate. 6.3 Krodhad bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. So let's understand this. The translation 2.62 reads, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. That's the first step. And from such attachment, lust develops. The second point. And from lust, anger arises. So we are at anger in this shloka. And the next shloka starts with anger. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Now, to understand these two shlokas, let's make a rough analogy. Let's imagine an ant or any small animal who's fallen down into a deep dark well, a well which is not very comfortable to be. The water is slimy, dark, maybe even poisonous. And the ant is trying to climb back again. It has its goal fixed up there, that I have to reach back up to the top. Now the ant is trying to slowly climb up the well, inch by inch, inch by inch. But somewhere on the way, its attention is caught by something which looks very attractive. Now imagine that ant becoming completely caught up by that object and somehow forgets temporarily that I had to go up there. And because of this attachment to the object, the ant now seems to think that the most important thing is to get that object, to attain that object, But because of this, it just forgets about its ultimate plan, and because of trying to attain that object, the ant may very well fall back down into that deep well. Now imagine all that progress it had made. धीरे 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 कर कर कुछ डिस्टेंस उसने कवर किया होगा, बट उस अटैचमेंट की वजह से, क्योंकि वो डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो गई उस अटैचमेंट की वजह से, वो वापस वहीं गिर गई. एंड नाउ शी हैज़ टू मेक ऑल दैट प्रोग्रेस all over again. This is something which roughly explains our situation. We are all in this material pool. We are all in the material ocean. This is called the Bhava Sagar. We have all fallen down here. And slowly by slowly, we are trying to move back up into the spiritual world. But what happens is that the objects around us in this material world, what are these objects? These are the sense objects. Because we talked about this earlier, all these senses that we are talking about, particularly the Gyanendriya, the knowledge acquiring senses, are attracted to certain sense objects. Eyes are attracted to beautiful forms. The nose is attracted to beautiful smells, wonderful smells. The tongue is attracted to tastes. So all these are called sense objects. So here, that is the object that we are talking about. That the senses somehow get attracted to the object. They see the object first. You see, when we are going somewhere, the eyes are bound to see something attractive, maybe a golgappe wala. We have to reach. Suppose we have to reach for an interview urgently, but we see some, golgappe wala whom we really, want to, relish the golgappas, something we really like doing, and we seem to think that, what if I stop for 5 minutes and have those golgappas? And then we all know sometimes what seems to be a very harmless indulgence turns out into our undoing, which means it may make us late for the interview. It may, actually lead us to anything that we didn't want to land up in. So this is the progression. This is the step-by-step fall down. Now these two shlokas Krishna is so scientifically telling us. Now who says religion is not scientific? So this is the most scientific explanation of how a person falls down, and how a person is distracted from the goal. His Grace Chaitanya Charitas Prabhuji gives the example of a horse and a bull. Sometimes you might see the horses and the bulls are fitted with some contraption that blocks their visions, the sideways vision. They can only see up front, that's all. Why is that so? Because if the horse or the bull sees something interesting this way or that way, maybe a juicy vegetable, something that it may get attracted to, then the horse may forget where it was going and it will just start pulling the cart or the carriage on that particular side. Now you see, we might tend to lose our focus once that happens. So what is the process? What is the step-by-step thing? First step is that the input goes into our mind through our senses. The senses are the, let us say, the doorways to the internal environment that we have. So the senses are like windows, Through these windows we get the input of something that we might see, something we might hear, a piece of music that our ear hears, or a beautiful smell, a wonderful aroma that enters our nose, and this information goes to the mind. Now, so long, so good and so far. As in, the point is that till the time we just see the thing, but just brush it away and move forward, it's okay. But when it goes to the mind, what is the job of the mind? Mind is an organ, or it's a part of our subtle body which is responsible for thinking, feeling and willing. So these are the three functions, main functions of the mind. It thinks, it feels, and then it wills, which means it wants to make a decision. It seriously wants to do something about it, something about it feels. So till the time the mind is thinking also, then also it's okay. But the time it starts feeling for that particular object, trouble begins. So that means when we look at something, when the eyes look at the form or any object that it is attracted to, till that time it's okay. But when we start contemplating on that thing, so here what is the word used here? Dhyayato vishayan pumsam, which means when somebody fixes his dhyan on something, which means keeps thinking and rethinking about it, contemplating. It could be anything that you see, it could be anything that you hear. Somebody told you that your friend just got promoted, so alright, till that time it's okay, but you go home and think about it. Oh, he got promoted. Oh, that's alright, maybe he deserved it. And then again, after some time, he got promoted. I don't think he has that much qualification, but then it's okay. Who knows what was the circumstances? It's alright. I must, kind of congratulate him. And then after some time again the thought comes back. You keep contemplating on the thought, and then slowly you get attached to that idea, you get attached to that object. Now if we actually look at the advertisement psychology, the shopping psychology that we see around us on the television, on the YouTube, whenever we are watching something, a particular ad may keep appearing again and again and again. And you might notice this, recently the advertisers are really playing well on this psychology. They have actually changed their advertisements in such a way that they have made the advertisements shorter but more frequent. So what happens is, it helps us to contemplate on that object. Now what do the advertisers want us to do? They want us to get attached to that object. If you are not contemplating about it yourself, then they will make sure that you contemplate about it again and again and again, and then you get attached to that idea, to that object or whatever product they're selling, and then you finally, that attachment leads to lust. What is lust? An intense desire to acquire that object. Now let's understand this thing, what's happening here. So first we just see something or hear something or taste something. We see maybe a rasgulla, and somewhere in the memory, okay, rasgulla tastes good, but then it's all right. But after a while, well, it does taste good, so I might as well have one, right? So you see, that is the contemplation on that same object, which will ultimately lead to lust. What is lust? Lust is a passionate mode, it's something like an intense desire that I must have it. Now that lust transforms into anger. Now why is that so? Suppose we want something really bad, because by this time, by thinking and rethinking about something, we have finally made the decision that I must have it, Then what is the next step? We start feeling angry, and that anger actually stems from one reason. Maybe you're not able to acquire it that easily. You thought that you want that object, you maybe think that you want that car, but maybe you don't have the budget for it. Or maybe the car bookings are full, it's not available maybe for the next 6 months. Whatever may be the reason, you're not able to acquire it. So that lust actually transforms to anger. You start feeling irritated, you start feeling annoyed, why can't I have it? And that constantly starts eating at you from inside, that anger. But even if you can fulfill that, lust, many times still you feel irritated and angry about many things. For example, it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. It didn't turn out to be so attractive, So the anger anyway stems out from lust. That's an inevitable result. Aega hi aega. Anger, lust se aega hi aega. Then in 2.63, Krishna is continuing. Anger aa gaya, phir kya hoga? So once anger comes in, then it will lead to delusion. Delusion means a sort of state of illusion, which means you see what's not there and you don't see what's there, Something like what happens to us when we are intoxicated. Somebody who's had a little too much of alcohol will feel that kind of delusion. So what happens in that state, a person who's, completely drunk on something or has had too many drugs cannot see the things as they are, and they may start imagining things by hallucination which are not present. That is a state of delusion. So anger is like alcohol in that sense. It's like an intoxicant. When you're angry, ever notice this? When you're angry, things start to seem different, You might start imagining things that are not really there. For instance, if you're angry at a person, you kind of, start seeing him in a different light, that this person is very cunning, he's trying to harm me, which may not be really true, right? Now, I'll actually stop here to share with you a real incident, right? This is the incident reported in one of the newspapers also. I don't recall the name as at the moment, but what happened was that a man, after a lot of deliberation and contemplation, bought a car that he dreamt to buy. It was his dream car, a big SUV, right? And he was very happy about it. So what happened was that the very next morning after he bought the car, he was watching the car from his flat window. He used to live on a some higher floor flat, and from there he was watching down and admiring his car. And suddenly what he sees is that a little boy comes and he starts scratching that car. And he's continuously scratching that car. Now this man becomes absolutely furious. He says, he starts shouting right from up there, "Stop it! Oh, stop it! Stop it!" And then he suddenly realizes, oh, it's my own son. But then that knowledge doesn't really sink in. Now he rushes down, from the stairs, carrying the knife that he already had. He was doing something with the knife. And he rushes down the stairs. He reaches the car and he starts beating the boy on his hand with the knife he had. He kind of just thrashes the boy continuously, and he doesn't even realize that the child has sensitive hands and all the knuckle bones of the boy get broken. Now, after the fit of anger passes, the man realizes that I have beaten my own son in that fit of anger so much so that the boy has now had a broken hand. Now he realizes that what he did was in a fit of delusion. And also when he looks at the car, the little boy who was not really grown up, also, he was a very small boy, didn't have the sense to do this or that, so he saw what the child was doing. The child had actually written on the car, "I love you, Daddy." That was the time the man really came to his senses, and he realized what anger had done to him. So anger does horrible things to us. One of them being that it just puts our mind into a state of illusion. We start imagining things which are not there. And what that leads to? That leads to a loss of memory. We lose memory. Smriti, what is smriti? Smriti means memory. So here the word used is samohat smriti vibhramaha, which means the memory loss actually results from anger is something that also makes us to lose our intelligence. Why? Because intelligence depends on memory. Why is that so? Let's understand this. If we are in a situation where we need to take a decision, now suppose I see something that I can associate with some negative connotation. Suppose I see a plate full of rasagullas. My first instinct would be to take up all of them and eat them. But then I remember from my memory that last time I ate that plate full of rasagullas, my digestion just went for a ride, and I couldn't eat anything for 5 days. So from that memory, my intelligence makes the decision not to eat those rasagullas, or at least not eat all of them, maybe one or two, So intelligence uses the memory bank for making the decisions. Here, Smriti also means the Shastras. Smriti Shastras means the Shastras like Vedas, Upanishads, which have been given to us by God Himself, Krishna Himself. Well, actually, Smriti more precisely means the Shastras which have been reproduced by the great sages after remembering what Krishna told, not the ones that Krishna said directly. Vedas and the Upanishads are Shrutis, they are directly heard from Krishna, but Smritis are like Mahabharata, the Puranas, which have been reproduced after contemplation by the great sages from what has been spoken by God. So here Smriti also means the Shastras which help us to make our decisions. For example, once again, that if we want to make a decision, we might want to think about what our Shastras tell us. What does the Ramayana tell us about a situation like this? What should we do in such a situation? So Smriti here also means the Shastras, and both, whether it be our own memory or the Shastras, both are lost when we are in anger, and that leads to a loss of intelligence, because as we saw, intelligence bases itself on the memory. If there is no memory, no Smriti, the intelligence is definitely going to act in a topsy-turvy manner, and we might make a wrong decision, leading us to a fall down. So this step-by-step process, if we can understand this, the next time we get attached or attracted, the first time attracted to an object, the first look, the first sound that enters our ear. So we must check ourselves right in the beginning. Now these steps are actually also checkpoints for regulation, which means at every step there is a scope for reversing back. Suppose we see something and before we know it, we start contemplating about it. So we are already on the stage of contemplation, right? So if we just get the idea, oh, I'm contemplating on this, so I may quickly check myself from contemplating too much. But suppose I start contemplating and I don't realize it then, and then lust develops. But if I realize it then, I can check myself. Okay, I am unnecessarily getting lusty about something which will lead me to my fall down. I can check myself. So actually one can check oneself at any point here, but the sooner the better, and so much trouble it saves us, because once you've already had a fall down, then it's difficult to pick ourselves up and go back. So I'll just read out some parts of the wonderful purport that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Also, there is one point to be understood here, that if we do not contemplate on the material objects, then what do we do? Where do we take our imagination? The imagination is bound to run. We are bound to contemplate on something, because these, as we discussed in the previous shlokas, these senses cannot be kept idle. They are like small children. They can't be made to sit idle. They have to do something. So if we don't contemplate on the material objects, then what should we do? We should spiritualize our contemplation. We should spiritualize our imagination. We have to use our imagination, but let's use it for serving Krishna. Let's use it for doing something nice for Krishna. If I have to look at something beautiful, and if I have to dwell on it, if I have to think about buying a dress, let me do it in relation to Krishna, somehow related to Krishna. It could be for the deities. You can think about buying dresses for the deities, or you could think about buying a good dress for yourself to go and tell other people about Krishna. But obviously we must keep checks here and there, because in the next shlokas purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us a very important insight that I'll come to little later. So in the first purport, in the 2.62 purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the senses require real engagements, and if they don't have those spiritual engagements, they are bound to get engaged in the service of Maya. So we have to choose either Maya or Krishna. Who do we want to serve? But let me tell you, Maya is a bad master. She punishes you badly, but Krishna is a good master, So in the material world, everyone, including Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planet, is subjected to the influence of the sense object. So what is Srila Prabhupada telling us? That nobody can think that I will not be affected. The highest of all, the Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, even they get carried away at times. And Srila Prabhupada gives us an example of Lord Shiva being attracted by Mother Parvati, for sense enjoyment, when he was, in his yoga sadhana, right? So, actually, Lord Shiva is a very great devotee. He's a Mahajan. So is Lord Brahma. But here Srila Prabhupada is telling us about the process of Dhyana Yoga. He's saying that anybody who is engaged in a dry Dhyana Yoga, a dry process of Dhyana Yoga, simply by shutting down the senses, not allowing them to do anything, Just imagine those yogis who are always sitting in Dhyan, doing nothing. Their senses want engagement. We can't just shut down our senses. So Srila Prabhupada is trying to say that if we are just trying to shut down our senses artificially, that is not going to work. On the other hand, he tells us about a great devotee, Haridas Thakur, who happened to be around in this world about 500 years ago at the time of Lord Chaitanya. And something, Maya Devi herself came to entice him into sense enjoyment. But Haridas Thakur was calling out the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, Lord Haridas Thakur did not get carried away even by Maya Devi herself. One can think about how beautiful Maya Devi must be looking if she wanted to come and entice this devotee. But Lord Shiva sort of, got carried away, but Haridas Thakur did not. Now, here Srila Prabhupada is simply telling us the superiority of the Bhakti Yoga over Dhyana Yoga, which means that if we are constantly engaged in chanting the names of Lord Krishna by our tongue, if we are constantly engaging of all our senses in the service of Krishna, there is no reason why they will want to go the other way, the way of Maya. You see? So, Srila Prabhupada is trying to tell us that it's very easy to avoid getting lusty for material things and having a fall down if we keep ourselves engaged always in the service of Krishna. So, that is the purport that Srila Prabhupada gives us. And in the last line he says that however powerful may a person be in controlling the senses by artificially repressing them, he's sure ultimately to fail, because the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his senses. That's a wonderful thought to contemplate actually, that if we really want to take control of ourselves, we must give this control to Krishna. This may sound a little, I would say, something which doesn't really go well with the rest of the things, but please think about it. Senses have been made by Krishna. So if we invest our senses, our mind in Krishna, then we really have the control of our senses. We can really make them do, things we want them to do. In the 63 purport, Srila Prabhupada is again giving us a wonderful, insight that The point here that he's bringing up is that if we are not engaged in using the material things, and if we artificially shun everything away. Now, have you heard of those sadhus, Mahatmas, so-called Mahatmas, who give up everything? They say, I'm not going to use the car, I'm only going to walk, I'm not going to use good clothes, I'm not going to use the phone, for instance, I'm not going to eat good food, I'm just giving up everything for my quest for God. So that is the kind of renunciation that will not succeed. That is what Srila Prabhupada is trying to tell us. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu gives a wonderful shloka. Prapanchikatyaya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam falagu kathyate. Falagu vairagya. We see we have vairagya. I have vairagya. I don't want all this, So, the kind of vairagya that I have been talking about recently, which means giving up everything. I don't want this, I don't want that, because this is all material. I don't want any material thing, This is called Falagu vairagya, false vairagya. A devotee truly knows how to use everything for Krishna. A devotee truly realizes that even this material world and material objects are an energy of Krishna, and I can use everything in the service of Krishna. That is the real vairagya. So you see, even though Krishna is telling us in both these verses not to get attached and lusty after material objects, because they are going to lead to your fall down, Srila Prabhupada actually goes one step further to explain the real meaning of the two verses. Krishna doesn't ask us to shut our eyes and never see anything beautiful. Krishna never asks us to shut our ears and never hear anything beautiful. Krishna never asks us to give up everything artificially, give up the phone, give up the car, give up good food. But as Srila Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and as Srila Prabhupada very kindly explains to us, that learn the art of using everything in the service of Krishna. Use the mobile phone for the service of Krishna. Use it for calling the devotees. Use it for watching Krishna conscious videos. Use it for watching the darshans, maybe from Vrindavan, maybe from Mayapur, from beautiful temples all around the world. Use your phone. Who tells you not to use a phone? Use a phone. Use your car. Use your car to go to the dham, that is Vrindavan. Use it for any Krishna conscious purpose. So a devotee actually doesn't need to shut down his senses. He just need to spiritualize them. He just need to use the material objects also in a spiritual manner. That is the real way to be, as Srila Prabhupada tells us. He gives us a wonderful example. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the absolute being impersonal cannot eat. Those who are impersonalists, Nirakarvadis, they think God is not a person. So if God is not a person, he doesn't have mouth, he doesn't have tongue, he doesn't have hands. So if he doesn't have all these things, how can he eat? So what happens? He avoids the good eatables. He says, if God can't eat, I will also give up everything, and that's how I will realize, myself spiritually. But a devotee knows that God has all three aspects. He is a light also, he is present in our heart as Paramatma also, and he is the supreme person, Krishna also. So Krishna is a person, and the impersonal aspect of him also arises from him. So since he is a person, he eats. He eats whatever wonderful food stuffs that you prepare for him nicely, as in a sattvic manner. And after he is eaten, we are also entitled to eat it. And that will not lead us to fall down. So if we are attracted to a simple rasagulla, maybe in a halwai's dukan, a shop, we may get attracted to eat too many, but then end up being sick. But if we are attracted to prasad, it can be rasgulla, it can be anything else, and of course prasadam brings mercy. So if we eat Obviously, here also we can't eat too many, but in limit only. But eating all these things will not entangle us in the material world. So even good food is available to the devotees because they know the art of spiritualizing it. So everything is available to a devotee because he knows that using everything in Krishna's service will not entangle him, not lead him to fall down. So this is the purport that Srila Prabhupada gives us and tells us about Yukta Vairagya. We spoke about Phalugu Vairagya, false, superficial Vairagya, because somebody who gives up everything superficially, his senses will again kind of fall down to it. For example, Vishwamitra, he gave up every kind of sense enjoyment. But what happened? The senses, even after thousands of years of not indulging, again wanted to indulge. So only for a devotee, this Vairagya is actually called Yukta Vairagya, which means Yukta comes from Yuj. Yuj means to join, connect everything with Krishna. So Vairagya, in which everything is connected to Krishna. We learn the art of connecting everything with Krishna. That's the key to success in this material world. I hope you liked today's talk. Personally, these two verses are two of my favorites because they actually give you an insight about how things work within yourself. So my request to you is, the next time you see something, immediately start being on an alert. Now what's going to happen? I have just seen something nice. The next thing would be I would be thinking too much about it, and then lust will develop, then anger will come, then from anger what will come? I will go into delusion. After that delusion, my memory will be lost, and if I lose my memory, my intelligence will not be able to work well, and if that happens, I will make wrong decisions and I will have a fall down. Just remember this sequence, and I'm sure at every step, in every point of time, you will be able to catch yourself just at the right time, and this will really help you to make good decisions in life. Let's get into this together. Till the time we meet next, let's keep chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram,